What's up, everybody? Welcome to Marriage Unmasked. It's me, your host, Henry, and my beautiful co host, Shireal.
Hey, what's going on?
So, we are glad to be back again on this wonderful Monday, y'all. Hope you had a great weekend, enjoying the family and friends or each other or by yourself.
Just chilling.
Oh, yeah. So, we got a great topic as always for today.
Yes, so our pastor has been preaching about prayer. And so we have a conference that's coming up, and the theme of the conference is the prayer mantle. But in church this week, he extended that topic. So he was preaching on it, but he said, have in your marriage, you have to have a mantle of marriage. And then he went on about explaining with this Smith. And I came home and I was like, Henry, we have to talk about that. That was so deep. So
Yeah.
our topic for today is the mantle of marriage.
Mm.
So let's get into it a little bit, right?
Let's get,
I'm clearly excited about this.
as always,
So
let's get into it.
So the mantle of marriage. So pretty much what he was saying is like when you're married, you two cover each other. Or your husband is your covering for the wife. But in your marriage, you should also be wearing that marriage everywhere you go.
Hmm.
So if you're out somewhere without your spouse and someone's complimenting you ladies or you men, um, oh, you look nice today. Oh, thank you. Have a blessed day. You don't need to be complimented. Oh, you look nice too. You should be wearing your mantle wherever you go. People should know that you're married. That was one of the things that he talked about. So I'm just gonna stop right there because there's more we're gonna get into. But what do you think about that?
So for me, as your husband, right,
Hmm.
and your covering, I have to operate in a sense in a way where it's respectable to you when you're not with me,
Right.
right? And so people know by the way you operate and you move on this earth, that, oh, well they married, married, or she's in a committed relationship or he's in a committed relationship. When you people talk to me, they talk to you, they be like, something's different. Oh yeah, I got a wife and she crazy, so I don't. That's not in a negative way. I'm just saying like I knew he was gonna flip, but no, just that whole perspective of um, operating the way a husband should be. That's like having the mantle of marriage upon you, right? And with me being your covering, my job is to one, pray for you, pray for us together,
Hmm.
and come together and pray together that our bond is tight,
Hmm.
regardless of how we move outside things. Mhm.
And I think that's the key thing. It's like about our movements. So even like as far as being Christians, like we talk about, everywhere we should go, we should be a representation of God. So in our marriage, everywhere we should go, we should be in a representation of our spouse. So there shouldn't be anything that I'm doing when he's not present that I wouldn't do in his presence.
Mm.
So showing up as a married person all the time, and that's really like wearing that mantle. Like if he go out of state on vacation or I go out of work for business or whatever, wherever we go, we should still seem married. We should still be behaving as married.
Mhm.
We should always be wearing that mantle.
Oh yeah, because you don't want no issues coming back, or
Hmm.
want somebody. You don't need nobody telling something before you get to say it, or you just don't want that because it's a bigger problem in the long
You
run,
just
right?
keep bringing up problems.
Well, I'm only speaking on that just
You're
from
like,
like,
you crazy. It's a big problem. Besides that,
all right,
besides that, like just being, if we breaking it down to the smallest or the most obvious values in a marriage, it's respect, right? We should
hmm,
always be
yeah,
respectful of our commitment to each other in our marriage.
yeah, respect and communication.
Hmm.
You should know. I should be able to communicate to you in a way that if I'm not around, you know what I'm thinking, you know what's on my mind, you know how I'm going to respond to stuff. You
Hmm.
ever you ever had something you know you so like for school, right, with our children,
Mhm.
and the teacher can call or send a message, be like, oh, yada yada yada. They be like, that's not Jay. That's not how
Okay.
I
Mhm.
know my children.
Mhm.
Just like we should have that same respect for one another. Like I know my husband or I know my wife. Like
Mhm. That's not
they're not
them.
yeah, they're not going for that.
Mhm. Or that's not who they are,
Exactly.
right? So nobody should be able to say nothing about you or me and it be a surprise.
Correct. They
Right.
shouldn't. Not
Right.
saying that it doesn't happen,
Mhm.
in marriages in general in the world, because I think that stuff do. You have to learn your partner over time.
Oh yeah, we're constantly learning each
Yeah,
other. Constantly. I feel like I mean because first of all, if we're committing to this lifelong partnership, who we met in the beginning is not who we are right now. So it's a
absolutely.
constant evolution of learning and getting to know one another in different phases of our relationship and our lives.
hmm I think for me, I even realize the longer, the more we're married, right? Every day that passes, I I love you more. Not that I long for you more. It's like I appreciate you more,
Hmm.
and I'd be like, yeah, that's my baby right there.
It's funny because that's another thing that our bishop went into. He was talking about the longer, so our bishop and first lady have been married going on 45 years. Okay, 45 years. That's amazing. So, but he was pretty much explaining the longer or the longer they're together, the closer they become. The more they want to be nice to each other, the more they want to do for one another. And I feel like, wow, like it's like, but in order to have gotten to that place, you have had to overcome some obstacles. You have had to like get through the worst of times, go through the best of times, like just build a life together in order to get to a place where it's like, what else can I do for you? Like, can you imagine being in that place of just selflessness? Like, how can I make your life better, easier? Like,
So
and that be your,
So when you talk like that and you're talking about like how can I be of service to you? Marriage in total is serving someone else,
hmm
like serving yourself, because the scripture clearly states that I don't belong to myself and you don't belong to yourself.
mm,
You belong to me and I belong to you, and we are one. So it's like, how can I make you better by serving you?
right.
And serving is giving someone what they need. If I'm gonna sit down and eat, I need utensils, I need a napkin, and I need something to drink. You
hmm
supply me with everything I need. Now,
We even see
you-
that, like, we're seeing that. I feel like it's so interesting how these topics come to us. It's like all these things happen and then the topic lands in our lap and it's like, "Oh, this is another example of the topic." So, just this week in our family, one of our family members had surgery and they have been married for 30 something years.
yep, yep,
So
yep.
we are also very blessed to be around a lot of couples who have been married for a long time. So we have wonderful examples of what healthy, happy, long marriages look like. But a couple in our family, one of the spouse just had surgery and a replacement joint surgery. And so the spouse is literally serving
Mm.
their husband and I mean just being their helpmate, and seeing that, you know it's just it's heartwarming
Mm.
because it also, as a wife, it gives me like I said, an example of like this is the behavior. These are the things, the attributes of sustaining a long marriage. Like we are here to help each
Yeah.
other. We are here to serve each other when things are not great. Because right when we first got married, we wasn't thinking about no joint replacements. But as the years go on, those things shall come up, and
Mm.
in those times, that's when you have to show up.
Yeah.
Like,
Let me interject a little bit. Even with
mm-hmm,
like the serving, the fact that they are serving in love, makes a big difference. Like
Mm,
I see them, they're patient. They're
mm,
not serving like, come on, like you can do like it's like you got
mm,
it. Come on. And encouraging certain. And
mm.
that makes a real big difference. I think in any marriage, right? Like I can make something to eat for my wife. And I could put my heart and soul into it. And A, she can love it, babe, it's good. Or B, she cannot love it and be like, babe, this not good. But I'm gonna eat it. You cook,
Laughing because me and Henry have a joke. So sometimes when he cook, I'll be like, "Oh, you ain't put no love in this," or like like I can tell you really ain't want to do this. You just do this together. But there's times when I'm like, "Oh, he took his time." Like he wanted to really do this for me, and I mean, obviously that's just life, right? You're gonna have your days where it's like, look, I'm doing it, but I think it's those real big moments though, like someone actually needing you, right, and you showing up in a way that's
hmm
like you don't have to need me, I'm already here.
Yeah.
It's like you don't even feel like this is something you need from me, this is what I am
Mm.
here for.
Wait, you say you don't have to need me. I'm already here.
Yeah, there's no need.
Crazy.
I
That's
fulfill
dope.
that need that is within our marriage at the moment. And so Henry and I also went through a similar situation last year. I had a big surgery and we talked about this on the podcast and Henry just showed up. It was like there was no need for me. Like he just stepped in and filled it. And I think that's what gets us to 30 years, to 40 years, right? Just being each other's, whatever, whatever that is.
But you know what? I think also to make someone to supply that need be successful is you have to be vulnerable too
Oh, yeah.
to being like served. Because some men, some women are so strong and like, nah, I can do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like our
Mm-hmm.
son, like he never needs help or wants help.
Never.
We can do it. I'd be like, all right. Then they'd be like, Daddy, can you help me?
Drives mommy
Like, I'm
crazy.
like, bro, if you just listen the first time, but I let you do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. It takes a lot to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
even in a marriage. You can give your body, you can give your time, or physical, whatever emotions. But when it's time to like be open and honest and give your heart and your soul,
And be like humbled too,
yeah,
right?
that takes a lot for anyone. And you have to be ready for that too, because in a marriage, you never know when it's going to come when you
Mm-hmm.
have to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I could be vulnerable in like when everything is good, but do I want to be vulnerable in the middle of an argument where I have to really be honest and share what I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling? You know what I'm saying? Those are those tough times where, like, if you just allow yourself to be free, God will open up something and will allow your spouse to speak or to minister to you when you're vulnerable. And it should be beneficial, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I vulnerability is a big one. I think that's one of those growing things, right? So the longer we're together, the more experiences we have together, the more I trust you, right? Because vulnerability is about trust. So if I trust my husband with my heart and I trust him that whatever I'm about to be vulnerable with, he's going to protect it and not, tear me down or make me feel bad about it, or like, so vulnerability and trust pretty much go hand in hand. Like I have to trust that I can be vulnerable with you. And I think that's very important too. And especially as a wife, like there's so many times I have to like be in prayer in my head or like be careful where I know my husband is being vulnerable and I have to listen and make sure sometimes don't even speak, right? Just let them be vulnerable. And I think that as a wife, we always want to have an answer, But sometimes for me, just need to let him be vulnerable. And then when he asks me for my feedback, then I give it. Because if I'm just jumping off, spewing out things, but actually without actually actively listening to him, then that's almost a mistrust or misuse of his trust because I'm just saying anything, or I'm giving an opinion that's not warranted. And that I've noticed for a man, he doesn't necessarily want my opinion when he's being vulnerable. Maybe he just wants to get that off his chest. Or he doesn't necessarily want me to say anything like, well, you should have did it this way. Or, because as women, we just want to fix it. Well, maybe if it would have been this way. And it's like, yo, chill, just listen, right? Let
It's a
me
fact.
let me get this out, and then once I'm ready, I'll say, okay, what do you think, babe? And then even in those times when it's like, okay, what do you think, babe? Sometimes I have to like be actively praying, like, Lord, what do he need to hear from me right now? You know, because what I might my reaction might not be something that's going to protect his vulnerability. So I always want to be sure that I'm conscious of those moments when he's going into that space and I'm conscious of my actions towards him when he's being vulnerable.
Yeah, you got to be careful on not you, but a husband or a wife. You got to be careful on both sides of the story when that spouse is being vulnerable because one thing about a marriage is that when they open up, that's like you said, that's a time to listen
Mhm.
and to allow God to speak to your heart to be able to minister. And when I say minister, I don't mean like praying for them. That just means like active listening, responding back, and giving them encouragement that they may need, or you know, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm.
Just that little something goes a long way, you know.
Definitely. And also, too, as women, like, I know, like, and I'm not, and what I'm about to say, I'm trying to think of a way to say it, but the only way I can say it is the way that I believe most women will be able to relate is you have to treat your husband how you treat your children. And I mean that in a way like when my children
Hmm.
come to me and they say, I have an idea, or mommy, look at what I did. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a piece of paper where they scribble two or three lines on. And I'm like, this is so great. This is wonderful. Oh my God, I love it. Right? Because I want to make sure that they know I'm going to encourage them. I'm going to lift them up. I'm going to be building them always, right? So if my husband comes to me with an idea, I have to have that same mentality. Like, even if I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world, or I think, oh God, here we go again with a new idea, or whatever us wives go through in our minds, right? We have to be very careful with that too, because that is also them being vulnerable. Like, babe, I got this new idea. And we need to be like, okay, that's awesome. Let's talk about it. We always joke about marriage unmastered. When Henry came to me and was like, what? Like, but I had to, in my mind, like, Lord, help us this out. I didn't say that sounds crazy. I'm not doing nothing like that with you. It was like, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out so it makes sense to both of us. And 3 years later, here we are. So it's just like being vulnerable is a lot more than what we typically might think it is. It's literally about continuously being able to foster an environment and a safe space of like, I can come to you with my thoughts. I can come to you with my dreams, my ideas, and all of them might not work out, but it's not my job to say that. What my job is to say, okay, babe, let's look at that. How can I help? Like, where, what do we need to do to make this happen?
Yeah, that's good. We should have named this topic being vulnerable. That's what it turned into.
But I think like that's all under the mantle though, right?
Mm.
Like that covering it's all up under there. Like I can't be vulnerable if I'm not covered,
Mm.
right?
Oh, message.
Mhm.
So I got the stink face.
Right though, right?
I can't be vulnerable if I'm not covered.
Because then what happens, like we see it on like line all the time, like the little memes, like or people just talking about like women don't want to be strong no more. Like, why do I always got to be strong? Why do I always got to be tough? Like,
Mm.
I don't want to be. Like, I just want to be. Sometimes I want to break down. Sometimes I want to cry. Sometimes I want to, so, but in order for me to be able to do that, I have to have a covering. Because if I don't, then I have to hold it all together and pull it together, be strong, and just plow through
The,
all the
the
time.
funny thing is, babe, when you say that, like, I can't be vulnerable unless I'm covered. And I think about women that are not married, that may be in relationships, and even men, vice versa,
Mm.
who are vulnerable, right? And not necessarily that's not your covering, but you're being vulnerable to everything and giving everything, and there's no covering. And then when it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's like that I've lost some part of me because of I wasn't covered.
You lost the part, but there's also another, and I'm gonna speak from my single self,
Go
right?
ahead, go
But
ahead, go ahead.
so there's also another element to that. For me, when before I met you, before we were married, and I'm speaking for other women that I know who have been in uncovered relationships, there's always a part of us that don't does not feel safe.
Hmm.
So even when we were dating, right? And we would say marriage, but it wasn't official, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our dating, and this is why I always say to my husband, we should have got married in 30 days. He always looks at me like, you wasn't ready, I wasn't ready, da 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 da. But for me, what that meant, what I'm saying is, after that 30 days, what started to creep into my spirit was doubt. So what doubt breeded was insecurity, and it breeded this like space that I still had to protect because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I was not covered. Therefore, there was only a certain level of vulnerability that I was going to give you. There was only a certain level of me that you were going to get. And I've heard other single women say, I've heard people in these long relationships and they're not covered, and they say like, well, this one don't do this, or this one don't do that, or this one don't do this, and a woman will say, well, I ain't married. What they're not saying that like put a ring on it, like being, but what when a woman says, well, I ain't married, what that's saying is, this is all I got for you right now. I'm not covered. You got me out here. You got me out here. You got me pouring out to you, and I'm not covered. I don't know what's going to happen with all these things I'm pouring out. So this is all I could give, right? Like I always tell my husband, the moment he asked me to marry him, like it was like something switched. It was like, oh my God, like he's like really serious. He is going to protect me. Like it's like it opened up, and but to that moment, it was like, okay, okay, okay. I'll open up a little, then I close back up. I open up a little, I close back up. But when you like you made that gesture, and you was like, okay, I'm serious. You not about to be out here looking crazy. There it is.
I remember. I remember that day.
Everything changed. I didn't even
Yes.
believe it. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. And he had talked about it all the time. But it's talking ain't nothing but talk, you know? And so when he did it, I was like, I didn't even believe it. I didn't even know I was worthy of it. I thought I
Mm.
was, but it was like, whoa, this is for real, and so just men, women out there who are in these long-term relationships, and you're wondering, why they don't do this or why they don't do that. Maybe they just don't feel safe. Maybe they just don't feel safe and covered.
Mm. I think that's our time. This was good. This was really
This was
good.
good. That was yeah, I think that's all I got for
Hmm.
this one. So y'all, thank you for listening. Tell a friend to tell a friend, share the podcast.
Yeah.
Please, we always encourage you to send your topic ideas, send your questions, your comments, your feedback. We want to hear from you. Our website is dropping. I'm just gonna throw it out there right now because it's gonna be up before the end of this month. www.marriageunmasteredpodcast.com. You want to be on there, okay? You want to get into the more intimate conversations. We're gonna have a VIP lounge. Like it's gonna be on and popping for our marriage community. So make sure
Mm-hmm.
you tell a friend to tell a friend. We really want to be a part of this community together. All right?
All
Is
right.
that all right? All right, y'all. Thank y'all for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.